Welcome to the Butterfly Effect, brought to you by Moss Adams. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 11 of the Tour de France 2021. 198 kilometers, about 123 miles in length, and it's an epic stage because we're going to do Mont Ventoux 2 times at the finish of today's stage. They'll go over the top, drop down the descent into the finish line, and it'll make for an epic stage of racing. Right away from the drop of the flag, Julian Alaphilippe is aggressive and he's going with all of the attacks. 25 kilometers into the stage is where Tony Martin's Tour de France will end when he flies off into the ditch and loaded up into the ambulance. Jumbo-Visma will take another blow with Tony Martin's departure, now down 3 riders. Up front, Julian Alaphilippe has dropped Nairo Quintana on the first categorized climb and he's going solo. He's putting on a show for all of us fans watching. He'll get some company later with Dan Martin, Anthony Perez, and Pierre Rolland bridging up to him. Nobody's happy in the field. Ineos are driving on the front. There's a group of 12 between the Ineos guys and Julian Alaphilippe. At the back of the field, Mark Cavendish is not having a great day and he's coming off. He has his Deceuninck Quick-Step guys around him though, but this day is going to be long and hard for the green jersey wearer, 3-stage winner, Mark Cavendish. Up front, Julian Alaphilippe and the group of 12 have all bridged together. When we start Mont Ventoux for the first passage, Wout van Aert, Julian Alaphilippe are just lighting up the climb and splitting that group down to 7 guys. Bach Mollema will be the last to bridge across when he attacks Pierre Rolland and bridges solo up to the group of 7, making it 8 when they go over Mont Ventoux. The Ineos guys behind, they've been on the front now for a while, but they're not making any kind of traction on the front group of 8, and they're still 5 minutes plus behind when we go over Mont Ventoux. They'll drop down the descent. When we start Mont Ventoux for the last time, Kenny Elizalde, the Trek Segafredo rider, is the first to throw in the tack. Behind Wout van Aert, Julian Alaphilippe, after so many efforts on today's stage, is starting to hurt and trying to hold on to Wout van Aert's wheel until Wout van Aert lights it up on the pedal and will bridge across to Kenny Elizalde. Elizalde, he can't do anything about the big Belgian man being there, and Wout van Aert will go on a solo mission early the last time up Mont Ventoux. They started with about a 4.5 to 5 minute lead at the bottom of the climb, and Wout van Aert is just digging all the way solo to the top. Behind in the group of favorites, all the GC favorite guys are there until Ben O'Connor is the first important rider out of the top 10. He was sitting second on the general classification, only 2 minutes behind Tadej Pogačar, and he's getting popped about midway up Mont Ventoux, suffering as much as he can to try to limit the damage, but his second place will be gone on today's stage. All the GC favorites now are all lined up. Ineos started off Ventoux with Richie Porte setting an aggressive pace. Michael Kwiatkowski now has jumped on the front, and we're starting to see the favorites go out the back. Enric Mas getting popped. Tadej Pogačar had one teammate with him, Rafał Majka. And Rafał Majka, this blew my mind. I didn't understand. We start getting near the top. Michael Kwiatkowski is already on the front and just blowing the field apart. Rafał Majka hops on the front, and for some reason he's only there for about 10 meters and then pulls off and blows. It was kind of a strange tactic from UAE Team Emirates, having him staying on the wheels as long as he can with Tadej Pogačar would have been a better plan, but they put him up there, he blows. Now Michael Kwiatkowski does a hard turn, and now it's just left to the favorites when he pulls left and drops anchor. Carapaz is the first to start setting tempo up there, and then Tadej Pogačar comes up. Then Jonas Vingegaard just lights it up. The Jumbo-Visma rider takes off. Tadej Pogačar tries to follow him. He's locked onto his wheel. Behind, Rigoberto Urán and Richard Carapaz are together. Rigoberto Urán took a second to get across to Carapaz because he had what looked like a little bit of a skipped gear or something. He'll bridge up to Carapaz. Carapaz is trying to lock on to Tadej Pogačar's wheel, but he just can't really close the gap. Jonas Vingegaard now throws in another acceleration. Tadej Pogačar is locked on his wheel. We're watching a fabulous Tour de France Stage 11 here. Jonas Vingegaard is throwing in another tack, and finally about 400 or 500 meters later, Tadej Pogačar blows and opens up the gap. Jonas Vingegaard is about 1.5 kilometers from the top of the climb, and he's going solo. Now up the road, Wout van Aert's going solo. Keep in mind, Wout van Aert, Jonas Vingegaard are on the same Jumbo-Visma team. At this point in time when I'm watching the race live, I'm starting to think, I'm always doing tactics in the head. I'm like, you got Wout van Aert up there, Jonas Vingegaard's going solo. Why not have Wout van Aert stop? The problem is you have two Trek Segafredo riders, Bach Mollema and Kinney, that are stuck in between. If Wout sits up, it's possible he loses the stage. If he doesn't sit up, Jonas Vingegaard, who's got a 30-second gap on Tadej Pogačar, might get caught on the descent. Those are the dilemmas when you're sitting here watching from the couch that the director has to think about when he's sitting in the car. Imagine his day today. Tony Martin crashes, Wout van Aert makes the front group, Jonas Vingegaard now is flying and dropping Tadej Pogačar. Now all you guys that left comments on the butterfly effect that said this race is over, it's not over. Tadej Pogačar's coming off. There's a chance Wout van Aert, tactically they can sit up and bring the two together. Instead, Jumbo-Visma directors decide to run Wout van Aert over the top solo. He bombs the descent in fantastic style. With 2 kilometers to go, he gives a nice little wave and a smile to the camera as he solos in to win today's stage in an unbelievable, spectacular style. I mean, he was second on yesterday's stage to Mark Cavendish. Mark Cavendish was dropped early on the first categorized climb on today's stage. DeCoonick Quickstep got him back on, only to get dropped on the next categorized climb, and now we're wondering if he can make the time cut. Now the guy who got second to him is soloed the stage, winner of today's stage. He came across the line spectacular style too, because he was MotoGP, standing up on his pedals, hands raised as far as he can get them. It was a spectacular win for the Jumbo-Visma rider. Jonas Vingegaard with the GC back there, he's bombing the descent, but he's not going to be able to hold off Tadej Pogačar, who got caught from Richard Carapaz and Rigoberto Urán. Now this kind of surprised me too, because remember coming down the descent, Richard Carapaz, Rigoberto Urán, they can just let the race leader do all of the work and try to jump him and gain some seconds, but they're 5.5 minutes more or less behind him. So instead they're working. It was a strange tactic when you look at Ineos riding so early in the stage to try to win the stage or put Tadej Pogačar under pressure. Now they got Tadej Pogačar under pressure. Carapaz is rotating through with them along with Rigoberto Urán to protect their places on GC from Jonas Vingegaard. Jonas Vingegaard will get caught right before the finish. The 2 Trek Segafredo riders, Kinney and Bach Mollema, will finish second, third on the stage. Pogačar, who got dropped and was losing time, now gets 4th on the stage. Rigoberto Urán 5th, Carapaz 6th, and Jonas Vingegaard 7th. It was a spectacular day of racing. Tactically, it was all over the place when you really break it down. I like the idea that they let Wout van Aert win the stage, but later, if Jonas Vingegaard was to lose this Tour de France or lose a podium at this year's Tour de France, we can go back to this stage and wonder what if Wout van Aert had waited at the top of that climb, grabbed Jonas, bombed down the descent, could still easily catch the 2 Trek Segafredo riders, easily, if you're willing to take every risk through the corner at 65 miles an hour. But good chance they could catch back onto the Trek Segafredo riders and still have an option at winning the stages. It's the butterfly effect, right? So I got to point it out because in the future, when you look at the general classification right now, Jonas Vingegaard's really tight when we're talking about 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th on general classification. Today's stage, gaining 30 seconds for sure or gaining 1.5 minutes if Wout van Aert is spectacular going down this descent, might have a huge outcome on this year's Tour de France if Tadej Pogačar has a really bad day or if he should crash out of this year's Tour de France. Don't have to point out how many guys have already crashed out of the Tour de France. So it's just as easily possible that Tadej Pogačar's name is one of those. And when you look at today's stage with Wout van Aert up the road, Team Jumbo-Visma, Jonas Vingegaard bridging up and dropping Tadej Pogačar, if Wout waits at the top, big possibility that they could have gained 1.5 minutes on Tadej Pogačar and every one of the other competitors at this year's Tour de France. Keep that in mind in future stages. I personally would have gone with Wout van Aert winning the stage, but I got to point it out because it's the butterfly effect. Mark Cavendish and his DeCoonick Quick-Step guys will get him into the finish line well under the time cut. So look for Mark Cavendish on tomorrow's sprint stage to equal the record of Eddie Merckx. Should be a fabulous stage tomorrow. There's lots of drama at this year's Tour de France. Team Ineos lost Luke Rowe today, so they're down one rider. We're ending today on a sad note because my man, Victor Campenaerts, didn't finish the stage. He's out. I'm still here. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon.